All right, number 8, last question. The mathematics department at the University of Iowa are trying to determine which textbook they should use for their calculus course. They have narrowed it down to 2 textbooks. They decided that an experimental study is the best method to use to determine which textbook will lead to better results on the final exam. One class of students will use textbook A, and one class of students will use textbook B. At the end of the semester, both classes will be given the same final exam. The scores for each of the students will be recorded along with which class they were in. A. Explain why an experimental study would be more appropriate for this situation instead of a survey or an observational study. Okay, the key with this one is that the researchers are interacting with the participants. In other words, they're interacting, they're giving them a textbook to use, whether that be textbook A or textbook B. Okay, they're imposing treatment on them. In this case, the treatment is the textbook that they use. Okay, that is a classic example of an experimental study. Okay, so to put that in words, why is it better to use an experimental study? It's because the researchers are interacting with the participants by giving them one of the 2 textbooks. Okay. They're not simply observing them. They're actually giving them a textbook to use. B. The department has 213 total students enrolled in calculus this semester. Describe a way to assign students into 2 classes that would allow the mathematics department to answer the question of interest. Again, we want it to be random. So we could use the hat example. Okay, so put all names in a hat. Mix them up. Pick half the names at random. So I'll keep picking until I've picked half the names. So those names that are picked will go in one class, and the ones that weren't picked will go in another class. Okay, so that's B. C, the distribution of scores for the students in the class using textbook A is shown below. Why is it reasonable to model this distribution with a normal distribution? Okay, so if we go back to our notes on the normal distribution from lesson 5, okay, we have to ask ourselves these questions. Is it bell-shaped? Is it symmetric? Is it unimodal? And is it bell-shaped? Okay, so if I look at this, is it symmetric? Is it perfectly symmetric? No. But is it roughly symmetric? Yes. Is it pretty close to symmetric? Yes. So there's one. Is it bell-shaped? Is it bell-shaped? Yes. Is it perfectly bell-shaped? No. But does it look like it's approaching a bell shape? Yes. So that's 2. And is it unimodal? Does it have one high point? Yeah, right up here. So why is it reasonable to model this distribution with a normal distribution? Because it is roughly symmetric, unimodal, and bell-shaped. Okay? If it's those 3 things, then a normal distribution applies. Use a normal distribution to estimate the probability that a randomly selected student who uses textbook A would get at least 15 questions correct on the calculus final exam. So for this one, we're going to use the normal distribution calculator. Okay, that is the calculator from lesson 7 that I shared with you in the link. That's this one right here. So our mean for textbook A was 10.221 right here. 10.221. And our mean or standard deviation was 3.859. And we want to know what, let's see, that a randomly selected student who uses textbook A would get at least 15 questions. So at least 15 questions. Would that imply greater than or less than 15? At least means 15 or higher. So we're going to go above 15. And we get 0.1078. Okay. E. Last one. The group that used textbook B got a mean score of 10.472 with a standard deviation of 3.157. Write a sentence or two that summarizes any conclusions that can be made about the statistical question, does using textbook B lead to improved scores on the final exam? So let's take a look at the average, okay? With textbook A, it was 10.221. With textbook B, it was 10.472. Is that a very large difference? No. So being that the difference is so small, is it likely that textbook B really made a difference? Probably not. Okay, so to answer the question, does using textbook B lead to improve scores on the final exam? Can we really conclude that? And the answer is no, we can't. So we don't know whether textbook B is actually better or not. So we can't answer the question because the difference in scores, the difference in means was so low or so small. Okay. It only went from 10.2 to 10.4. That is not a very large difference. So the likelihood is that textbook B does not really make a difference, does not really increase scores on that exam. So we can't really answer the question. We can't answer the question. We would need to likely collect more data if we really wanted to know whether textbook B made a difference or not. And that is it for number 8.